and welcome back to Cooking on a Budget with Christine. Today we're going to make some thick pea soup with bacon and croutons. So here we go. I'm just going to run through first of all what you need for this soup. So I'm going to use a third of a bag because there's 900 grams of just simple garden peas. They don't need to be the most expensive ones. 2 potatoes, an onion, 2 vegetable chopped cubes, either a garlic or some lazy garlic, and bacon and bread. And that is going to make a tasty lunch for 4 people. Here we go. The main thing with this is making sure that because the peas don't take long to cook, that everything is chopped up quite finely. So I've chopped up my potato and my onion already, and I'm just going to show you, keep your hand out of the way, reasonably finely with your onion so that it's in quite small bits. So I'm going to do something slightly different with this onion this time, but I'll show you once we move over to the cooker. So I'm going to chop my potatoes very, very finely into small pieces today, and then they're going to cook as quickly as the peas. So I'm going to chop the onion up. I've also chopped up my garlic into small pieces as well. I'm just going to pop those in with the onions. If you decide to use your lazy garlic, I would use a good teaspoonful in this, and it gives it a lovely flavour. So we'll finish chopping up all the vegetables and then we'll pop over to the cooker and I'll show you how to make the soup. To start this soup, I'm just going to add 1 tablespoonful of oil. Don't be tempted to add any more, otherwise it's going to make this soup very, very greasy tasting. And then I'm going to pop in my onions and my garlic. Now I'm just going to let those fry a little bit to brine them. Now I'll just let those fry for about 5 minutes. Just make sure that you keep stirring them so that they don't stick to the bottom of the pot. Now that's the onions sizzling quite nicely. It actually was 5 minutes there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add about half my stock, and I'm just going to bring that to the boil, and I'm going to let my onions cook for another 5 minutes. Well, that's my onions have had a good boil. I was asked there what's the significance between boiling my onions today instead of frying them, and the real reason is that this time with this soup I don't want to use too much oil, because I find with the pea soup the oil actually separates and you end up with a skim of oil on the top of your pea soup. So next we're going to add the potatoes and the rest of the stock, and lastly the peas. I measured 300 grams of peas out here. When I was measuring, that's 1.5 mugs full for anybody who's not got a scale. So 1.5 mugs full of peas will be enough to do this soup. So that's about 1/3 of the packet if the packet's 900 grams. So I'm going to bring that to the boil now. Because the stock was hot but the peas were frozen, that has reduced the temperature in my pan, so I would really have to turn it up. It'll take a few minutes for this to come to the boil, and then I'm going to turn it down and show you how to complete the rest of the meal. Well, today's going to be one of those days where the outtakes are going to be longer than the actual video. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make the croutons and the bacon bits. And it's up to you whether you just use rashers of bacon or whether you use the lardons that I've used previously in my other recipes. So youngsters who are out there watching this video, and I know there's quite a few of you, this is the tasty bit. I'm going to show you parents how your children can cut their bacon and everything without using a knife. In my kitchen, I always keep a pair of scissors, I was going to say knives, scissors for cutting things up food-wise. I keep these, wash them, and I put them back in my food drawer. And so, taking 2 ounces of bread that people often throw away or feed the birds, but if you keep these, you can pop them in your freezer and take them out whenever you need them. And we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut our bread. Now this is for the youngsters out there. This is the best way to cut the bread, mums and dads, so that they're not cutting their fingers. If it's an adult making this, of course you just take the knife to it and cut them the way you normally would when you're slicing bread. And we're going to cut our little bits of bread like that, and we're going to chop them into little squares, just like that. Now I'm going to set those aside and finish those off shortly. And what I'm going to do is just show you how to cut the bacon. Now, I don't like fat and bacon, and normally I would trim the fat off my bacon. But for this recipe, it's a good idea to keep the fat on the bacon, because the fat will melt a little bit and will give your croutons a nice taste. So I'm going to move these onto my chopping board here. And you're just going to cut your bacon down in little strips. Again, youngsters, use your scissors. Adults, well, you use whatever you feel like use. So we chop our bacon into little pieces like that. So nice, just about 2 centimeters squared. And there we have them. So those are nice little tiny bits of bacon. And we're going to chop all the bacon up so that it ends up looking like that. Oh, yeah, okay. Now that's the little croutons all nicely chopped, and my bacon pieces already chopped and ready to go. So we're going to go over to the cooker and I'll show you how to finish off your croutons. I've popped the 2 tablespoons full of oil, vegetable oil, into the pan here, and I'm just going to sprinkle on my bacon pieces, and I'm going to try and make sure that they're all split out so that they're not getting double pieces. I'm going to pop those in the pan and we are going to fry them. So there they all are, nicely done. I'm not going to put the bread in just yet because I want to give the oil the flavour of the bacon. I'm going to turn that up just a little bit. There we go. Now while we're doing this, the pea soup is bubbling away. It takes a little while for your peas to come to the boil, simply because when you've added them to your warm water, they've cooled the water down, and it has to heat up again. So, and it also has to defrost the peas. So it took about 5 minutes there for the soup to come to the boil, and then I turned it down to simmer it. Well, it's working, it's magic to the left of me as I'm doing this. So turning it up, we're frying the bacon nicely there. We'll give that about 4 minutes and then we'll come back to it. That's my bacon sizzling nicely in the pan. And what I'm going to do is just sprinkle my croutons in there and give them a little mix around with the bacon to get the oil into them. I'm going to hold on to the pan so it doesn't shoot everywhere. Mix them nicely like that. As you can see, the bread is taking on the fat. If you were doing a vegetarian version of this, just miss out the bacon and go straight to putting the oil in the pan and just popping the croutons in the pan. There's no need to season this because there's quite a bit of salt in the bacon, and that's going to make your croutons salty anyway. So I would avoid putting any seasoning of any description in this. Now I'm going to turn those right the way down, because what I want them to do is I want them to toast on both sides. So give them a few minutes and toast them on one side, and then we'll go back and turn them over. And the whole idea is that everything in the pan is going to be nice and brown. So that's my croutons nicely brown now, so they're ready. I'm going to switch those off and then we're going to move over to the soup, and I'm just going to show you how to finish off your soup. And that's taken about 20 minutes for this soup to cook. And I'm just going to show you, see, when you put your knife in to the potato there, it should mash nicely like that. The peas, well, they only take a few minutes to cook. And if I can find a bit of onion in here, you can see, just check that your knife goes through the onion. If the knife cuts the onion like that, then it's ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to process this now with the hand processor. Now, this soup takes a lot of grinding simply because the shells on the peas do take a lot of doing. So it took me, I think, about 5 minutes when I was testing this out, just to get it to a nice smooth consistency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind it halfway to show you what it looks like, and then I'll grind it again and show you what it should look like. Okay, so I got my passage of time wrong there. That didn't take very long at all. But that soup looks as if it's ground and it's ready to go. But if you look on your spoon, you'll see that there's lots and lots of little bits in it. So I'm going to grind it a bit longer. It needs to be really smooth, otherwise if you're making this for children and they'll get their little bits in the mouth, they really will not. They'll say, "Meh, no like it, no like it." So I'm going to go and grind it for a bit longer. So that's it, ground for another 2 minutes there. And as you can see, it's lovely and smooth now, and it's ready to serve. We were just thinking there, telling your children you're having pea soup for lunch is perhaps not the best one, so I think we should really call this Grinch soup. So we're going to take our Grinch soup over to the bowl. And there we have our lovely thick pea soup. It's very tasty actually. We had it for lunch yesterday after I tried this recipe out. And then I'm just going to add a few croutons onto the top there, and that looks absolutely delicious. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video today. Yeah, I've been a bit away with the fairies today with my how many minutes to boil it for, etc, etc. But you know, it's all good fun. So enjoy!